You're trying to get more done. Maybe you're an artist, starting a new hobby, or just want to improve your work productivity. But it's hard to focus, you lack energy, or sometimes you just don't feel like it. The answer might be embracing your nervous system's potential in the present moment. Let me explain. Your nervous system serves as your body's communication and control center. It regulates automatic functions, things you don't have to think about, like breathing and heartbeat, while also supporting your thinking and decision-making and your emotional regulation. Your nervous system can have different states or potentials that change throughout the day, moment to moment. Understanding the different states of your nervous system can help you to better manage your energy, focus, and even be more productive. I'll explore these 3 states and how to get the most benefit from each of them. Hey, my name is Justin Sunseri. I am a therapist and coach that wants to help you live with more calm, confidence, and connection without psychobabble or woo-woo. Welcome to Stuck Not Broken. This podcast is not therapy, of course, nor is it intended to replace therapy. I'm going to give you a very brief understanding of what the Polyvagal Theory is. If you've never heard this before, this is not the place to start. I would actually go to episode 101 of my podcast. I'll have a link in the description for you for that whole playlist. It's a series of episodes that discusses these ideas or the autonomic states in a lot more detail. But basically, for now, it's good enough to know that mammals can be in one of 3 different states. Basically, it's definitely more complex, and we'll touch upon that. But basically, mammals can be in a state of safety, of flight, fight, or of shutdown. In other words, they can be in a state of connection, mobility, or immobility. The safety state is all about connection to self, others, and environment. The mobility state is about flight and fight. And the immobility state, shutdown, is about, immobilizing. It's about playing dead in the face of a life threat. Those are the 3 basic states. These states can also combine and create mixed states. Just like if you were to combine primary colors, they create mixed colors like red and blue equal purple. Same thing here. So if you combine safety plus flight fight, that's connection plus mobility, that results in a mixed state called play. Safety plus shutdown, so safety plus immobility equals stillness. That's the ability to be alone and immobile and be okay with it. But you can also combine flight fight mobility with shutdown immobility, resulting in freeze. That's where you're charged up but immobile at the same time. So it's like having the gas on in the car, the accelerator, plus the brake at the same time. The wheels just spin. All of these primary and mixed states come from biological pathways. It's not just like feelings that we have floating around inside of us. These emotions, these different thoughts that we have, all come from the state of our body. And we can feel these states when they're active. It's not a random guessing game. We can actually feel them when they're there if we're mindful enough. And so that's what I want to talk about here is how can we notice when they're active and get the most benefit from them while they're active. The first one we'll start with is the safety state. The safety state is connected to the ventral vagal pathways from your brainstem. The safety state is all about connection to self, others, and environment. It's known as the social engagement system. When this state is active, we can do things like make eye contact, we can smile, we can hug, we can be close to each other, use gentle contact. If you don't have the safety state active, you can't really do those things. Or if you do, it won't feel good. It won't feel safe. The safety state is active when we have safe people and safe places, or safe enough people and safe enough places. The safety state is ideal for creativity and connection, optimal performance, productivity. When we have enough access to our safety state, that enables us to accomplish a wider variety of things. We can think critically, we can weigh pros and cons, we can map out like an agenda on how to accomplish a project, we can work with others really well, we can hear what they think and what they feel with empathy, share what we think and feel, and come to a shared compromise or negotiation and to meet our goals. We could also plan out what's the right kind of colors that we want to use to create a certain, or to mix to create a certain color in a painting that we're doing maybe. We can think about what's the optimal way to edit the words in a book to get a point across. From safety, we have a lot of access to critical thinking, but also to the present moment, connecting with ourselves, connecting with others. So we have access to thought, but also to emotion as well. So ideally, when it comes to productivity, creativity, and getting stuff done, we want to have as much access to safety as possible. That doesn't mean that we're meditating and our eyes are closed and we're in that, cross-legged meditation pose. No, that's not what it means at all. As long as we have enough access to safety, we can simply focus and get stuff done. Okay, so how do you get to your safety state? That's the next question, and it's a good question. There's a couple things you can do that are predictably going to equal more safety. What it looks like for you is not a guarantee, there's no prescription for this. I don't know what you should do in particular to get to your safety state, but generally there are some pretty predictable things that you can do. Number one is to extend your exhale. No matter what state you're in, if you can, be mindful of your inhale, but when you exhale, extend it a little bit longer. When you do that, it triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's where the safety state lives. So extend that exhale, and that'll help you to settle into the present moment a bit more. While you extend that exhale, I like to recommend to my clients, that's a good time to say something nice to yourself, or that's a good time to remind yourself what you're working on. When you extend your exhale, just add a little something else onto it, like a kind word or two. The other thing that can generally help and get into more safety and to connect to the present moment is to be more mindful of your movement and of your sensory input. So whatever you're doing right now, be mindful of it. You can also consciously choose to do something like go for a walk and then be aware of the movement of the walk. But if you're painting something, you can also be aware of the movement of your arm while you're painting, of your elbow, of your shoulder. If you're sketching something furiously or slowly, you can be mindful of that movement. Likewise, and even while you're doing that, you can be mindful of the sensory input. So what's the vibrancy? What's the color of the paint that you're using? What's the sensory input when you're going out for a walk or exercising? What does it feel like to flex and release? What do you smell around you? What do you hear? What do you see? All those sensory input things, be more mindful of those, and that can help settle into the present moment and settle into your safety state. Now, I don't expect you to stop what you're doing and go for a walk in a forest or a hike, but you can definitely include elements of nature into your daily routine. A really easy one is to open your blinds and look outside. Open your blinds and let natural sunlight come in. If you can, sit by a window and look outside while you work. I personally love to do that. You can have elements of nature through sound. I personally like the sound of rain. So while I'm working, and especially if I'm slower paced or just really settling into slowness and stillness, I like to have rain on in the background. It just helps ground me. You could also use smell. If you have a candle that has the smell of the forest, yeah, it's not the forest, but you're a step closer to the sensory inputs of the forest. The other idea is to connect with safe others. You don't have to be best friends with everyone you work with, but can you exchange a smile with them? Yeah, probably. Can you exchange some chit chat about the weekend? I hate it personally, but there's some benefit to that. There's benefit to seeing smiles and hearing the vocal prosody in someone's voice. When they're in their safe enough state, they'll do something with their voice. It's just naturally. It's this sing-songy quality that we have where we can go down, but also up, and we can do everything in between. That's called vocal prosody. And when we hear that, it automatically kicks us into our safety state a little bit more. So yeah, I agree. Chit-chatting about the weekend is painful, but there's a lot of benefit to interacting with a safe other. Okay, so maybe you work by yourself and you don't interact with other people. Well, first off, get the heck out of the house as much as you can and smile at somebody at Starbucks or wherever you go. Or on your walk around the block, smile at someone, say hello, hear their voice. If you can't do that, well, you probably listen to music. Can you hear the voice of the person who you were listening to? Yeah. If it's rap, if it's heavy metal, that is less than ideal because there's screaming and a lot of monotone voices. If you could listen to something like the Beach Boys or Etta James, that has way more vocal prosody, and that might help kick you into your safety state. Likewise, on a break, when you listen to podcasts or YouTube videos like this one, can you connect with the person's voice? Can you hear the safety in their voice? Can you see their face and see how that, or mindfully recognize how that feels within you? You don't have to have the perfect natural environment. You don't have to have the extremely supportive and co-regulative person there with you. There are elements of these things you can incorporate into your workday or into your creative process to help you feel a little bit safer than before. So how the heck do you know when you're in your safety state? you'll feel it. Emotionally, you'll feel it. It can feel like calm. It can feel like relaxation. It can also feel like excitement and productivity. It can feel like curiosity. It can feel like interest. All these things pretty much involve you being connected to the present moment. If you can pause and look out of your blind or outside of your window and just take in the present moment, you're in your safety state. If you're thinking critically and planning things out for a project, you're in your safety state. So feeling is one way, but as I touched upon already, thought is another way. Thinking critically, weighing pros and cons, planning out step-by-step processes, that all involves some level of safety state. And that's a really good way to recognize it as well. Okay, that was safety. Now let's shift over to sympathetic activation, which you probably know as flight or fight. It's not that simple, but you probably know it as that. The sympathetic state comes from the sympathetic nervous system. And I want you to associate this not with flight or fight, but with mobility. Sympathetic nervous system and mobility. Flight or fight is a possibility when we don't have access to literal safety. When we're in an actually dangerous scenario, then yeah, flight or fight becomes extremely relevant and your body will utilize that. In that moment though, the body is not accessing its own safety state because of the needs of the environment. It needs to run away or be aggressive. But when we have enough safety in the system, we can also utilize mobility from the sympathetic nervous system. So look at this as when we're in actual danger, yeah, flight or fight. When we have safety in our system plus sympathetic, that combines to create playfulness, creativity, productivity, motivation. It's a lot different than flight or fight, which is about getting away or being aggressive. We want mobility. We want motivation, creativity, productivity. That's different. The sympathetic state is really useful when it comes to productivity, motivation, and creativity. It's great for these like short bursts of creativity or productivity, but also just drawn out longer extended periods. When you have those short bursts, that's probably a lot of sympathetic flight fight coming up or a lot of sympathetic mobility coming up that you just use all at once. Probably with powerful movements, like if you're painting, you're going to be using stronger, more forceful brush strokes. You might be splashing things on the canvas. If you're sketching, you're going to be moving your hand, wrist, elbow, and shoulder faster. When you're creating something for work, you're going to be getting a ton of work done all at once. You're going to be typing hecka fast. And that's great. But we also want longer, drawn out periods of motivation. And that comes from your safety state being active more along with your sympathetic state. That comes from those two things balancing each other out, and you'll have this longer period of productivity that's more sustainable. Otherwise, if you have less safety in your system, then you're going to be having these bursts and then perhaps collapsing into shutdown, which we'll talk about next. But it might be like a burst of sympathetic and then shutting down, and then burst and shutting down. A lot of good can come from that, but we want to have more safety and just draw that process out and draw out that motivation and that productivity and that creativity. If you don't have safety in your system, it's going to be more scattered. Your ideas, your inspiration will kind of pop up here and there, but it's not as predictable and you'll have less control. I don't like using that word in a sense, but it'll feel less in control. It'll feel more out of control. It'll be sporadic. And then when it's there, you'll try and capture it and make the most out of it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but with more safety in your system, it won't be as sporadic. You'll have more intentionality over it. So how do you intentionally use your sympathetic nervous system, your mobility, in order to be more productive and more creative? One option, which you're probably doing already, and look, I've been there too, is procrastination. The longer you wait, the more it builds up, and eventually you just got to get the thing done. You just have to use your mobility. No shame. I've gotten through a lot of my life this way, and it definitely has its usefulness. And some of us just say, well, that's how I get stuff done. It is what it is, fine. That's an option. You just wait around until that sympathetic energy builds so much that you complete whatever the heck you're working on. The other one that I recommend more is to have more structure with goals and to funnel your energy toward a specific direction, toward your goal or goals. So instead of waiting for the deadline and then, using that procrastination energy, to get the thing done. Can you do a little bit each day toward that goal? Like, yeah, you probably can. Will you? Well, that's another discussion. If you have more safety in your system, I think you're more likely to do that. If you're more leaning into defensive activation, more flight fight, or even more shutdown, you're probably not going to be doing that as much. So this really comes down to how much are you practicing being in your safety state, and then how much of that are you bringing over to your creative and productive process. Okay, so the first option is procrastination. The second option is get a little bit done each day toward your bigger goal. And within that second option, you can set small to medium achievements. So there's the big goal, like I want to complete this painting, or I want to complete this slideshow presentation. That's the big goal. But day to day, you could have achievements that you set toward that bigger goal. So if my bigger goal is a PowerPoint presentation, well, I have to figure out what's the design that I like. That's an achievement. What font, what color am I pulled towards? If I know that, that works toward the bigger goal. So instead of sitting down and focusing on how do I achieve my big goal, it's more about how can I achieve my achievement? The font, the color. Do I have enough sources? Do I have the number of slides laid out? Have I planned how long this is going to be? If you can start making a list of things, those achievements, and knocking them off, well, all of a sudden you're making progress toward the bigger goal. If you don't have that and you sit down to work and all you have is sympathetic activation, that's going to go here and there and everywhere. You're going to be distracted. You're going to be pulled in numerous directions. And that's an option, but I would encourage you to set your achievement list and start knocking those things off toward your bigger goal. It creates this funnel. It creates an avenue toward completing your goal. In my mind, it's the image of Luke in the X-Wing, who is he's about to blow up the Death Star, and he flies down into that ravine. What do you call it? It's a funnel. It's a tunnel. I'm not sure what to call it. If you're a Star Wars geek, tell me what the heck it's called. I forget what it's called. But he flies down into the trench. Oh my God. He flies down into the trench. Before the trench, he didn't know where to go. He's just flying out in space. He could literally go anywhere. But once he knows the goal, which is blowing up the Death Star through that ventilation shaft, which is connected to the trench, he flies into the trench, he flies through the trench, and then fires his missile into the ventilation shaft and blows up the Death Star, right? So that trench funnels his energy, his activation toward one specific goal. You could do that every day, and you could do that every day toward a larger goal, like a painting or a slideshow presentation. So while you're working, let's say you have the big goal and you have your achievements list and you're working at it, but then you notice you're pulled this way and that way. I think music, when you're in a sympathetic state, is really helpful. Again, it just kind of helps to focus your energies in the present moment toward a specific direction. You could use music as a way to get up and dance out your energy, sit down, and then focus better. But you could also use it as like a beat. It's the rhythm to get stuff done. I personally love listening to chill hop when I'm trying to focus, but I'm also kind of amped up. Chill hop has a beat. There's no vocals. It's just music. And there's just really cool like little sounds that are often implemented into it, like sounds of nature. But it also has the beat and it has this lo-fi crackly sound, which I personally find really soothing. When I have energy and chill hop, I notice that I'm way more focused and get way more done versus not having that. So listen to the music that helps you focus. Same thing if you're working out, you know what music works for you to help you focus and to help you stay down that trench, right? You know what music helps you do that. For me, rap music does not help me whatsoever to work out. Heavy metal music, that helps me out. You'll know that you have access to your sympathetic state because it'll feel like anxiety, it might feel like anger, but that's without enough safety. So we want mobility with safety. So feel mindfully or look out for mindfully increased heart rates, some muscle tension, rapid breathing. If your thoughts are going all over the place, these are pretty good ways of telling that you have more sympathetic activation, more mobility in your system than you do to safety. We just want to balance those things out. So the first thing to do might be put music on, set an agenda for yourself, and see how it goes. If it's still too much, get up and move. Let out some of that energy and just kind of bring it down a notch. If you could do that even mindfully, like if you go out for a walk to get some energy out, mindfully do it. Listen, look, smell, use your senses. Smile at people, pet a dog if you can, not a stray one. Ask permission if it belongs to somebody else. But do these things to help your mobilization come down enough and your safety state to come up enough to balance out. Then sit down with your achievements agenda, with your bigger goal in mind, and start knocking stuff off your list. So we got safety and we got sympathetic. Now let's look at the third primary state, which is shutdown. Shutdown occurs when we can't be safe, we can't run away, we can't fight. So the body goes into shutdown. It collapses. It plays dead basically in the face of a life threat. This is a necessary component of being alive. All of us, all organisms have some level of immobility, which has helped them to survive over generations and generations and generations, passing their genetic material along to the next generation, which then uses it to survive, and so on. So just normalize that. It's a part of you, it's a part of me, it's a part of all of us. It's normal and it's okay. And we can actually use this to our advantage in our day-to-day life. I want you to view shutdown not as defeat and not as a defect. It's a necessary component. It is there because we need to collapse in our day-to-day life. We need to collapse and we need to restore. We need to get ready for the next day or the next project. It's an opportunity to rest and to reconnect with ourselves and with our environment and maybe with others. It's an opportunity. It's not defeat. So you've had a wonderful day of productivity, hopefully, or maybe a bad one, but you've had a day of productivity. At the end of the day, you need to collapse. You need to shut down maybe. When you do that, it prepares you for the next day. Think of this as a necessary component of your productivity or creativity cycle. We have to have periods of downtime. We have to have periods of rest and reconnection. That's all this is. You might spend a lot of time in shutdown and it looks like depression. I would say it is depression. You might spend a lot of time isolating yourself, and okay, that's fine, that's fair. What that tells me is that you, or all of us, if we're in this state, we need to listen to our body's needs, also incorporate more elements of safety into our daily life, and that might just be reconnecting using our senses to the external environment. If you have a lot of shutdown in your system, you probably need lower stimulation, you probably need more alone time, and you probably need to reconnect to the external environment using your senses. As you allow for that and give yourself true moments of recovery, not phone binging, not food binging, not drugs, not fake it till you make it, I don't know, none of that stuff. When you give yourself true moments of rest and recovery, true moments of solitude and quiet, that is more restoring than anything else. So it's okay to have that, to listen to your body's needs, to provide for it, and then to slowly come out of shutdown. And eventually you'll work your way into mobility, into some flight, fight, or sympathetic activation. If you have too much dorsal vagal activation or too much shutdown activation, you'll know it because you'll feel numb, you'll feel dissociative, you'll feel collapsed, you'll feel withdrawn. All that tells me there's too much shutdown and not enough safety. Again, listen to your body's needs. Plowing through work and forcing your way into exercise and productivity and creativity, that's fine, but it only lasts for so long. Eventually you simply burn out or you do collapse because you're not listening to what your body needs. Instead of searching for tons of mobility and productivity and creativity, instead of that, strive for stillness. So we want to go from shutdown to stillness. Stillness is the combination of shutdown plus safety. Try to incorporate more elements of safety into your life mindfully, and then mindfully allow yourself to be in a shutdown state. When those two things combine, they create stillness. From stillness, then mobilization may emerge. I'm actually working on this right now for the Stuck Knot Collective, the private community and courses. I created a course called Shutdown to Stillness, which teaches people how to go from shutdown, combine it with safety, and then into stillness. The next course I'm working on is called Stillness to Sympathetic, which teaches people how to go from stillness and then to allow sympathetic mobility back into their system. I think that's a really good flow for how things should go. If you're not incorporating the safety aspect into your shutdown and resulting in stillness, you might be setting yourself up for failure over and over again. The safety aspect is kind of necessary. If you don't, then you might go from shutdown to flight fight to shutdown to flight fight and just kind of cycle back and forth between those two. So it might feel like deep depression and then all of a sudden huge surges of fight activation. Probably might feel like a ton of anxiety as well, but more likely there's going to be some fight activation, irritability, anger, maybe rage. You're likely going to be going from depression to anger back and forth. That's when there's too much shutdown. There's another immobility option, which is freeze. And again, that's shutdown plus flight fight. Freeze is that dorsal vagal state plus flight fight. Freeze is different. It's not exactly numbness and dissociation. It could be, but there's also elements of mobility within you. There's activation. Freeze can also feel like stress and overwhelm, like a lot of overwhelm. It could feel like panic. It could feel like rage. So you need to connect with safety first, which thaws the frozen flight fight activation, and then use that flight fight activation toward creativity, productivity, exercise, whatever you want to do. You can reduce your fear through small, manageable steps. If you have a lot of freeze activation, then saying, I'm going to create this wonderful slideshow all at once is not realistic. And it's probably going to reinforce your freeze because that's overwhelming. That's too much all at once. That's too much. That demands too much safety, and that demands too much mobility. So instead, we want to make those goals really small. It's great to want to create that painting or to want to go to the gym every day for 30 minutes. That's great. But are you going to be able to do that today and tomorrow and then also sustain that long term? Maybe not. So instead of having that 30-minute goal, can you do a 2-minute goal in your home of lifting a weight? Can you have a goal of spending 30 seconds visualizing working out? You got to start somewhere. And we want to reduce the amount of fear as much as possible. If you can do that, do those teeny tiny goals for a week and then add on to the challenge by saying, well, yeah, I can visualize for 30 seconds per day for a week going to the gym. Can I now walk or drive myself to the gym, to get out of my car, get back in my car and drive home? Can I do that for a week? And then a week after that, can I go into the gym and just stand there for a couple minutes? Yeah, it sounds weird, I know. But you get the idea. We want to have small steps leading to the bigger goal. If you can accomplish the small steps, that's probably more likely even from freeze than it is to give yourself that unreachable, huge goal. For shutdown, if you have earned that collapse at the end of the day, go ahead and collapse. Let yourself fall face first onto your bed in quiet and just breathe and recover from the day. Hopefully you get the idea of these different states, how they show up, and how you can utilize them. Now, how do we take what you know and implement it into your daily life in a way that works for you? I want you to streamline your efforts as much as possible, and I want you to make it easy to navigate through these various states and to use them in the most optimal way possible. So if you know more often than not, you need to collapse and decompress, do you have a place to do that? Do you have a place that is ready for you? If not, then that might be a good place to start, is to prepare for that. If you know that you want to be more productive and that involves reading and studying for a test maybe, is your book or your document ready to roll? Or do you have it in a backpack, which is in your closet? Would it be more efficient for you to have that at a specific spot where you will do the most reading because it is the most stillness-inducing spot in your home? Can you leave that paper or that book there waiting for you versus going through the obstacles of backpack, closet, and across the house? If you have more mobility in your system, do you have the agenda or the structure? Do you have the achievement list that you can mark off as you achieve them? And if you do, is that list easily accessible? I personally write stuff on I have this big chalkboard. I turned a closet in the office into a chalkboard and storage area. But I use the chalkboard that has my priorities list listed and grouped. to help me structure my time, to help me knock things off of my list, and then to get my priorities done before I move on to the next things that I want to accomplish, which is like way too much. But this is helping me to focus my efforts. All I have to do is look up to my left, and I will see my list of things to do. So if you have a list of things to do, is it easily accessible? Or is there an obstacle in the way? And an obstacle could even be like picking up your phone to look at your notes. That's great, but now you got to pick up your phone, and now you got to open that certain app to look at your notes. Is there an easier way to do it? Can you put it on Post-it notes and stick them on your screen? The basic idea here is, if you know that you lean more into a certain state, do you have things set up so that you can easily make use of the potentials for that state? The other recommendation on how to optimize yourself is to practice feeling safe every single day. I would highly recommend you do it every day. And I don't think it has to be much. In the Stuck Knot Collective private community, I do these things called a daily growth hub. And every day I give a challenge out to people. And the past couple weeks, I've been focusing on giving out really small challenges that require no more than 2 minutes of mindfulness. One of those things was pick the same spot at the same time every day, set an alarm or a timer for 2 minutes, and do a 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes, it could be less, up to 2 minutes mindfulness exercise where you just listen and feel and look inward and connect with the external world. Just a mindfulness meditative practice for 2 minutes. And that was for 1 week. The next week we did one where it was, you set an alarm for every day for 5 days, and you set that alarm for a different time every day. When the alarm goes off, same thing. Spend up to 2 minutes noticing or being mindful of being mindful. One of my alarms went off when I was in CVS, and so I used 2 minutes to walk up and down the aisles and to touch things and to smell candles and just connect the environment. Another alarm went off when I was at my friend's house. We were doing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign with our kids, and it was unbelievably difficult to be mindful because we were having so much fun. So it didn't work out that at that moment, but later on that night when he and I were hanging out, chatting under the stars at his beautiful ranch at nighttime and just talking, I used that as a time to be mindful of the absolute serenity of that moment. I would encourage you to do something like that every day. No, it does not solve all your problems. I know that. But it starts to create that predictability. It starts to create a reference point for safety. And if you can do 30 seconds, you can do 2 minutes. If you can do 2 minutes, all of a sudden, well, now what else can you accomplish after that? The last recommendation I have for you in your daily life to focus on productivity and creativity and motivation is to look inward and notice what state you're in. Do you have more mobility or less? Do you have more collapse or less? Do you have more potential to connect or less? Look inward and just notice for now. Just notice what you have more or less of throughout the day if you can. And if you can do that, then you can ask yourself, what can I accomplish from this level of activation or lack of activation? What can I accomplish? What's the best I can do in this moment? Is this a time for me to collapse and be okay with it for 5 minutes? Or is this a time for me to look at my list of achievements and start knocking things off one by one? Or is this a chance for me to take a break and go hug my kids and say I love you and then get back to work? Thank you so much for joining me here on Stuck Not Broken. I hope this episode has helped you to look at what your potentials are throughout the day and then how to apply those potentials to what you want to get done, to what your bigger goals are day to day or even bigger goals in life. I gave you a bunch of stuff you can work on day to day, but I also have a resource for you. It's a free resource. And to make it as simple as possible, all you got to do is click on the link in the description and you'll get that download right away. You don't have to go anywhere else for it. You click the link and you'll get the download. It's my SSIEC sheet. That stands for State, Sensation, Impulse, Emotion, and Cognition. This lays out what your polyvagal states are and what the experiences are from those states or the potential experiences. This can help you to get more language or to better identify what state you're in. And then if you could do that, then you can ask yourself, well, what can I accomplish? What does my body need at this moment? What can I accomplish from this state? So click on that link and you'll get the download right away. I have a ton of other resources. If you want that, click on the link in the description and that'll take you to the free member center where I've collected all that stuff for you. Okay, that's it. Again, thank you so much for listening and bye.
This podcast is not therapy, not intended to be therapy or be a replacement for therapy. Nothing in this creates or indicates a therapeutic relationship. Please consult with your therapist or seek for one in your area if you are experiencing mental health symptoms. Nothing in this podcast should be construed to be specific life advice. It is for educational and entertainment purposes only. More resources are available in the description of this episode and in the footer of justinlmft.com.